The rain started before sunrise. Not a dramatic storm. Not thunder. Just a steady English rain falling across miles of rolling countryside in the Cotswolds, turning ancient stone walls darker shade by shade. Drone footage would glide slowly over green hills if this were a film, mist hovering low, sheep barely visible through the morning haze. And somewhere beyond the hedgerows stood a property few people had ever seen in person. A house rumored to become the newest European sanctuary for the most private power couple on Earth. But that morning, water crept silently across the fields. Slowly, patiently. And within weeks, the deal would disappear. No announcement. No dramatic press conference. Just a quiet withdrawal. But what happened next changed everything. Because insiders began whispering that the decision wasn't just financial. It was personal. And suddenly, the question wasn't why they wanted the house. It was why they no longer felt safe there. For decades, celebrity culture has sold a powerful illusion. Money solves problems. Fame builds protection. Success creates certainty. But every once in a while, a story cracks that illusion wide open. The reported £7.5 million countryside move wasn't just another luxury purchase. It represented something symbolic, a shift in lifestyle. After years divided between Los Angeles, New York, and global tours, the idea of settling, even partially, into rural England suggested a quieter chapter. A retreat. A place away from cameras. Away from expectation. Away from noise. And that's why the cancellation fascinated people. Because walking away from luxury rarely happens without a reason strong enough to overcome desire. And in this case, that reason came from something ancient, unpredictable, and impossible to negotiate with. Water. To understand the decision, you have to understand timing. The early 2020s changed how the ultra-wealthy thought about home. Privacy became currency. Space became security. And countryside estates, especially in England, became increasingly attractive to international buyers seeking discretion. The Cotswolds had long been known as a quiet refuge for artists, politicians, and high-profile figures who wanted anonymity without isolation. Stone cottages hidden behind trees. Villages untouched by modern chaos. Local pubs where billionaires could sit unnoticed beside farmers. For a couple constantly watched by millions, the appeal was obvious. Sources described the property as expansive yet understated. Not a palace designed to impress, but a sanctuary designed to disappear. Long driveways. Private gardens. Natural barriers instead of walls. The kind of place where children could run without drones overhead. Where mornings began with silence instead of headlines. And for a moment, it seemed perfect. But perfection often hides details visible only when you look closer. The first warning didn't come from tabloids. It came from paperwork. Environmental reports. Insurance assessments. Local planning documents few outsiders ever read. The region had experienced increasing seasonal flooding over recent years, not catastrophic disasters, but recurring patterns. Fields saturated faster. Rivers rising earlier. Drainage systems struggling during prolonged rainfall. At first, these were technical concerns. Manageable. Engineers discussed elevation adjustments. Landscaping solutions. Water diversion plans. But then came conversations with locals. People who had lived there for generations. They spoke calmly, not alarmed, which somehow made their words heavier. Yes, it's beautiful, one resident reportedly said, but the water always finds its way back. And that sentence lingered, because it wasn't about one storm. It was about inevitability. Imagine the visit. Late afternoon lights stretching across open countryside. Security vehicles parked discreetly away from the main road. Inside the property, large windows framing endless green horizons. A place built for peace. You can almost hear footsteps echo softly across wooden floors as the couple walks room to room. Not as performers. Not as icons. Just as parents imagining ordinary mornings. breakfast without schedules, evenings without flashing cameras, moments that fame rarely allows. But outside, clouds gather. Rain taps gently against glass. And somewhere in the distance, water collects where land dips slightly lower than expected. No drama. No crisis. Just a subtle reminder that nature writes its own rules. And sometimes, those rules rewrite plans quietly. Here's the part headlines never capture. Decisions at that level aren't impulsive. They are layered with responsibility, legacy thinking, family safety, long-term vision. For people whose lives operate years ahead of the present, risk is measured differently. A beautiful home today must still feel secure 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Because the purchase isn't just emotional, it becomes part of history. And suddenly, the dream begins competing with doubt. What if extreme weather increases? What if repairs become constant? What if privacy turns into isolation during emergencies? And perhaps the most human question of all, what if peace comes with anxiety attached? No one saw this coming, but hesitation began replacing excitement. Reports suggest discussions shifted tone. What began as interior design conversations turned into contingency planning. Experts consulted. Risk models reviewed. Insurance scenarios analyzed. The romance of countryside living slowly collided with reality. Because wealth allows you to buy comfort, but it also gives you access to information most people never see. And sometimes, knowing more makes decisions harder. One advisor allegedly summarized it simply. You're not buying the house as it is today. You're buying what it could become. And suddenly, the future didn't look as calm. Meanwhile, public curiosity grew without realizing it. Fans speculated about European relocation. British media anticipated celebrity sightings. Local businesses quietly hoped for economic excitement. But behind closed doors, uncertainty deepened. Rainfall statistics, climate projections, historical flood maps. Each document adding weight. Each conversation nudging the decision closer to a crossroads. What would you do in that situation? Commit to a dream, or walk away before regret becomes permanent? And then, almost without warning, communication slowed. Lawyers delayed final confirmations. Timelines stretched. What once felt inevitable now felt fragile. Because sometimes the biggest decisions in life aren't made during dramatic moments. They're made in silence, in late-night conversations, in pauses between sentences. And soon, one quiet choice would ripple far beyond a countryside estate. A choice that revealed something unexpected about power, control, and vulnerability.